well, let me be clear. We will not arrest him. I do not believe the Palestinians, as they exist right now, have all of the elements to give it statehood.
Remember this disgraceful woman called Linda Thomas-Greenfield, America's UN ambassador? We have known her as a disgrace to her community, shame to humanity, an enemy of Palestinians, and a lapdog of Zionists in Israel. Some of you have tried to act like scholars, arguing that, oh, she is so innocent, she is not a bad person after all, she is only following the order of her superiors, she doesn't have any choice, anybody in her position would have done the same. My answer is absolutely load of rubbish. This is nothing but a desperate attempt to glorify a criminal and find a justification for her crimes against humanity. As I have said, nobody is holding a gun on her head to make her do what she's been doing inside the UN Security Council. She had a choice to not follow those orders. She had a choice to even resign. But she's chosen to peddle those lies and act as the enemy of humanity. She is a downright horrible person, and as I have said before, I would not even want her as my neighbor, as I am ever so mindful of the impending psychological impact on my children by her presence. Anyway, this horrible human being has now stooped to a new low with her fresh comments that you can expect only from a member of a rogue regime in the United States of America. You don't expect fragrance from a human being soaked in filth, do you? She was speaking at an event organized by Council on Foreign Relations in the US. She was asked if the US will arrest Netanyahu, the war criminal, bloodthirsty terrorist from Israel, if that individual travels to the US in the wake of an arrest warrant by the International Criminal Court. Another element of the question that you will see soon was that the International Court of Justice has now declared Israeli occupation of Palestinian lands illegal. Not surprisingly, she ignored the ICJ part of the question and shamelessly replied that the US will not arrest Netanyahu even after the ICC issues an arrest warrant against him.
I wanted to ask about the International Court of Justice decision ruling that Israel's occupation is illegal and must end, and ordering member states, including the United States, to end support for Israel that assists their settlements, as well as the impending arrest warrant against Netanyahu and the Israeli foreign minister. Are you going to abide by the International Court of Justice orders? Are you going to arrest Netanyahu and the foreign minister if he turns up in the United States? And, what is your feeling on these international court rulings?
Let me start with the last part of that. We have a problem with the court's ruling. And we've been clear that we have a problem with the court's ruling. And I think you know the answer to the question about whether we will arrest President Netanyahu. He was here in the United States a few weeks ago, and he was not arrested. The warrant was out before that. Okay, well, let me be clear. We will not arrest him. And because we have a question about the jurisdiction of the ICC on Israel, and we've made that very, very clear.
And this war criminal, Anthony Blinken, was telling the world to comply with the ICC ruling, exactly the same ruling on Vladimir Putin, Russian president.
We must continue to shore up the pillars of peaceful relations among nations, without which we will be unable to achieve any of our goals. That's why we must send a clear message, not only to Russia, but to all would-be aggressors, that we will stand up, not stand by, when the rules that we all agreed to are being challenged. Not only to prevent conflict, instability, and suffering, but to lay the foundation for all that we can do to improve people's lives in times of peace.
So much respect for International Criminal Court when the action is being taken against Russia. But forget about the respect. this war criminal, Anthony Blinken, he went to the US Congress earlier this year and said that he would work with them. He would work with the members of the US Congress to decide how the judges of the ICC can be punished for acting against the bloodthirsty terrorist Benjamin Netanyahu.
Do you support Russia being designated a state sponsor of terror?
So this is, I know, an ongoing conversation we've had, and one that...
Well, I just got a few minutes, so...
Yeah, so very quickly, look, I think my perspective is this. We have and we're using many other authorities that I think are more clearly applicable.
We'll
to
talk
what Russia's
offline.
doing.
I would
Happy
urge
to-
you. I would urge
happy to
you to
pursue
do
this.
this. We need to send a signal to Russia. We're serious at every level, and they deserve to be a state sponsor of terrorism. I got a list of people that died. That's too long for me to run off, and I can't say half their names. So it's time for Putin to be labeled a state sponsor of terrorism. They've just wreaked havoc. Now let's get to the ICC. Did you reach out to the prosecutor's office about your concerns of bringing a case against Israel?
Yes,
Did you talk about the concept of complementarity?
that's exactly what I talked about, because it's exactly as you said. My understanding of the court's intent.
So I want to, we have a lot of different, I want to thank you. I want to thank President Biden for issuing a strong statement. Your statement was terrific, Ms. Secretary. Senator Schumer was very, very good. I, along with many others, engaged the ICC to engage Israel before you made a final decision. At least listen to them and see if you could find common ground. Again, I want to repeat, they were supposed to be on the ground yesterday. Is that correct? The ICC?
That's my understanding, yes.
And they informed the Israelis basically after the flight left, they were not coming. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
And there was a CNN interview with a prosecutor general announcing the arrest warrant. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, too.
Which was filmed before the flight was due to leave.
I believe that's...
I think that's bad faith, folks. So I want to take actions, not just words. Will you support bipartisan effort to sanction the ICC, not only for the outrage against Israel, but to protect in the future our own interest?
I welcome working with you on that.
Okay, let it be said.
That's the level of audacity they have. So what more can we say now when the US is no longer even pretending? It's now out in the open, which is support for the Israeli genocide against Palestinians. And yet this horrible woman, Greenfield, says that the UN has Israel problem. Yeah, she said that UN has been suffering from Israel problem. And in the same vein, she has the audacity to declare that Palestinians do not deserve to have an independent state. So the US will not abide by the ruling of the ICC, not recognize Palestine as an independent state and sovereign state, even though the rest of the world is happy to accord this status to Palestine. And you think America is a neutral player in the Middle East conflict?
I mean, on the issue of Israel, it just seems that, like you said, you're able to pass resolutions on Sudan or on Ethiopia and Eritrea. But when it comes to Israel, it seems that the council itself, but the larger UN body, has a hard time grappling with issues related to Israel and the Palestinians. And I think there's a lot of ambivalence about this conflict and what the council should do.
Yeah, I don't know if there's ambivalence. There is a lot of emotions around this issue. We see it every single day on the news. But as I said, we got 4 resolutions passed. And actually, people have forgotten that one resolution that we put on the table that actually brought all of these issues to the fore, we got 12 votes plus ours, and Russia vetoed that resolution. People forget that Russia vetoed that resolution. So yes, we do have problems, but again,
Does the UN have an Israel problem?
I think that we have an Israel problem in the UN. And there is a inordinately over-focus on Israel, even before Gaza, on Israel in the UN. It's something that we have raised on a regular basis. There's no other country in the world that has a monthly meeting on the councils agenda going back decades. So yes, there is an unfair amount of focus on Israel in the UN, and it is problematic.
One more question on Israel, and then I want to ask about Kenya and open it up to the audience. What is the U.S. going to do as more and more countries, as they are starting to recognize the Palestinian state, and the Palestinians are becoming eligible for membership in some of these organizations?
A state has certain responsibilities for its people. And I do not believe the Palestinians, as they exist right now, have all of the elements to give it statehood. And so, yes, there are a large number of states that are recognizing Palestinian statehood. They have now been given an alphabetized place in the General Assembly, but we have to deal with the issues of peace and security, and all of that is going to have to be negotiated between the two parties on the ground for this to work in an effective way.
You know why there's been monthly attention to Israel in the United Nations? Because of its war crimes against Palestinians every single hour, every single day, every single month. There should have been daily focus on Israeli war crimes, not monthly, in the United Nations for the past 75 plus years. What is this woman talking about? Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform on buymecoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that this platform is worth supporting, then you too can be part of this movement. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.